Mr. Chair, we're now live.
Great, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustment meeting for today, December 16th, 2020. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet. Due to the COVID-19 emergency and requirements for physical distancing, no in-person attendance is permitted at this meeting. All regular practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience. We'll now proceed with the meeting. Before moving on to the application portion of this meeting, I would like to confirm whether there are any disclosures of interest from members of committee.
No, I don't have.
Great, seeing none. I do have to declare an interest on application A24/20 for 675 Harwood, as I have a regular working relationship with the applicant and their firm. So I will be stepping out for that application, and member Roberts will be taking over for me. The committee is bound by, and if we can look for adoption of minutes from the previous two meetings, we will first look for adoption of the minutes from the October 28th, 2020 meeting. Wasif, and is there a seconder? Mark first, sorry there. Thank you. Seconded by Mark. All those in favor? Great, and the minutes are adopted. And now we will look for adoption of the minutes from the November 25th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a, Lori? And do I have a seconder? Cecil, thank you. And all those in favor? And those minutes are also adopted. Thank you, everyone. The committee is bound by the Planning Act to assess each application based upon its ability to meet 4 tests: that the application is minor in nature, is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the lands, and finally, is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant and/or agent will be called upon and at their option may provide a brief description of the minor variance application they have applied for. Committee members may ask questions of the applicant and/or agent, after which anyone with a direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against the application. If there are multiple people in attendance for an application, we will go through in order of those registered first and speak to those in opposition of the application after the applicant has had a chance. Once a motion is put forward by a committee member, there will be no further input from the applicant or anyone having interest in the application. After a decision is made, notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. Anyone having interest in the application may appeal to the local planning appeals tribunal within 20 days of the decision of the committee. After 20 days, the decision shall become final and binding. If a building permit or other approvals are required, they may be filed during the appeal period. However, no building permits will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum during this evening's proceedings is expected of all present at all times. And beginning with an introduction of the committee members with us this evening, we have Mark Pavlik, Cecil Ramnath, Wasif Ahmed, Lori Roberts. I'm the chair of the committee, Greg Whitfield. And with us representing town staff this evening, we have Eric Simpson, planner with the town of Ajax, and Caitlin Grout, secretary treasurer and senior planner with the town of Ajax. Now, before we move on to the application portion for this evening, I'd like to ask my fellow members of committee if we would like to hold down application A21/19 for 522 Kingston Road West to the end of the meeting, as we have a number of individuals present this evening to speak to the application, as well as some correspondence that will likely need further discussion. Do any members of committee have comments or concerns with holding that down to the end?
No, support the decision fully.
Great. Then if everyone is in agreement, we will hold that application down to the end of the meeting for this evening. And we will move on to application A24/20 for 675 Harwood Avenue North. At this time, I'm going to step away and member Roberts, it's all you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
May I actually make an ask that we actually advance application, the third application for Emerson Court ahead of the Harwood one? The one for Emerson Court?
Absolutely, I don't have an issue with that. If any other members of committee have any comments or are in agreement.
I'm fine with it.
Great.
Agreed.
Okay, great. Then we will move on to application A29/20 for 11 Empson Court. The variance requested this evening is to permit uncovered steps leading to a below-grade entrance within an interior side yard with a proposed setback of 1 meter from the west interior side lot line, whereas the zoning bylaw does not permit encroachments into a required interior side yard for platforms or steps. Is the applicant with us this evening?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. Town staff have recommended approval of the application subject to 3 conditions within the staff report. 1, that the subject variance apply only to the property municipally known as 11 Empson Court and as shown on the site plan submitted with this application and found as figure 2 within the report, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that the owner or applicant maintain the historical drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. And 3, that the owner or applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. For the applicant, have you received a copy of this report?
Yes, I have.
And do you have any questions or comments on the conditions being recommended by staff?
No.
Great. And sorry, one item I jumped ahead on a little bit. Caitlin, was notice served and were there any responses received on the application?
Notice was served.
So you cut out at the end there, Caitlin. Were there any were any comments or responses received?
I think we may have lost Caitlin.
We did not receive any written correspondence. Sorry about
Great.
that.
That's okay. Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, and for the applicant, we will now hand it over to you. If you have anything to add to the application, if you like anything you'd like to explain to us, now's your chance.
I think the application itself is pretty clear. The owner, by mistake, he was not aware that he has to obtain a permit, and he constructed the steps. And now the last step, the top basically thread, is falling within the 1.2 meter side yard setback, and it's encroaching into the side yard setback. So now we're going through the process of permit application, and for that we have to get approval from Committee of Adjustment for the stairs.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the applicant from members of committee? Lori?
Hi, yes, I just had a quick question. Would you be able to tell me when the door, the entryway was put in? When it was erected?
According to what I've been told, in 2017 they started it, but they never finished the process until 2019.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Any other questions or comments from members of committee?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Wasif.
To the chair, to the applicant, are you aware of the 3 conditions and are you aligned to them in the staff report?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Well, there's no further questions for the applicant. Is there anyone here to speak either for or against the application with us this evening?
Excuse me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm now the committee is whatever is. I'm just the neighbors behind this application A21/19. I'm just
so we're dealing with application A29/20 at the moment.
Okay.
So if you don't mind sitting tight for a little bit, we'll be getting to A21 shortly.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So seeing no other further individuals to speak to the application, in that case, if we can look for a motion on the application. Wasif?
Mr. Chair, I propose that the committee approve application A2920 for 11 Empson Court on the basis that it is minor in nature, meets the 4 tests, and subject to the 3 conditions in the staff report.
Great, thank you. And is there a seconder on the motion? Cecil? Thank you. And all those in favor? Great, and your application is approved subject to the 3 conditions in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Okay, now moving on to application A24/20 for 675 Harwood Avenue North. Lori, at this time, I will let you take the reins from there, and I will be stepping out temporarily.
Okay, so this is for application. Sorry, just getting it open on my page. I apologize. This is for application A24-20, which is for 675 Harwood Avenue North. It is being submitted by Bosefields Incorporated on behalf of 675 Harwood North. There are 3 reliefs being requested. The first one being section 5.4, which is location and use of parking. It is in the prestige employment zone. No parking shall be permitted in the front yard, or exterior side yard, except for a maximum of 20% of the required spaces, provided that the spaces in the front or exterior side yard are used exclusively for visitor parking and are arranged in a single row. And the relief requested is to permit a maximum of 54%, which works out in this case to be 68 parking spaces of the required parking spaces in the exterior side yard of the subject lands, regardless of tenured arranged in one row. The second request is for section 6.4.2 zone standards, minimum setback from the front lot line. The minimum required setback from the front lot line is 9 meters, and the relief requested is 6.21 meters from the front lot line. And the third request is for section 6.4.2 zone standards, minimum setback from the rear lot line, and the minimum required setback from the rear lot line is 3.0 meters. The permitted setback that's being requested is 1.5 meters. So, is the applicant available?
Yes, this is Alex Avenue. I'm here representing the owner from Bosefields.
Okay, thank you. And there are, this application is subject to 2 conditions, which is that the owner applicant obtain approval of site plan application SP 7-20 to the satisfaction of the town of Ajax, or this decision shall become null and void, and that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Have you received this notice?
I have, yes, and we agreed to the 2 conditions.
Perfect. And Caitlin, has notice been served, and have there been any responses?
I don't cut out this time. Yes, notice was served, and we did not receive any written correspondence.
Okay, perfect. And are there any questions or comments from the members? Cecil?
Yes, I have a question for staff actually. I couldn't actually see it on my computer screen, but I was wondering whether staff can comment on the topic of adequate accessible parking.
Sure, through the chair. Yes, that would be reviewed through the site plan application process, and I can confirm that the applicant is providing the minimum required accessible parking. It is hard to see on the site plan because it is such a large site, but there are numerous accessible parking spaces located within close proximity to the front doors of each of the proposed units.
Okay, I've got a follow-up question. In terms of traffic entering and exiting that court area, but I can't recall seeing noticing whether there was a traffic light at that intersection. Maybe you could you confirm that there was a traffic light there?
Sure, I can. Let me just verify for sure. I do believe that that intersection does not have a traffic light. Just give me 1 minute. But through the review of the site plan application, our transportation section would review the transportation matters. Just give me 1 moment. I'm just double checking here.
Hey, Caitlin, if you like, this is Alex, applicant. I can hop in quickly if you like.
Absolutely.
Sure. I believe that there is a light. There is an existing traffic light at Kingsford Court and Harwood. But I mean, as Caitlin said, the the traffic movements has been reviewed throughout the site plan process, and it's my understanding that the traffic and transportation department at the town doesn't have any comments. I have prepared a bit of a presentation, but it sounds like I'm happy to help out and answer any questions that the committee may have, though.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. And through the chair, I can confirm I've just pulled up our mapping system that there is a street light at the Kingsford Court intersection, as Alex noted.
I apologize, Alex. I should have given you an opportunity to have a say on this application. So you can go ahead and let us know what you needed to say there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. I was just going to say, I'm a land use planner with Bellsfields. I'm agent for the application. We provided a planning rationale letter when we submitted the application that describes how the variances meet the 4 tests. We've of course reviewed the planning staff letter from Caitlin, which does recommend approval, and you went through the variances. Within that report, it does confirm that none of the other departments in the town, including transportation, have any issues with the proposal. There was no comments from the neighbors. I mean, with that being said, I am happy to go through and speak to these variances. I don't think it may be necessary. I'm happy just to answer any questions that the committee may have. I think that if I can just, I guess, wrap things up in an executive summary, would be that this application, this site plan application, was submitted in June of 2020. We received comments back from the town, and we resubmitted in October of 2020, just a few months ago. And these plans for this minor variance application reflect that resubmission, and that we of course made design changes in accordance with what the town has been asking for. I've been working with Caitlin over the past few months in terms of proceeding with this minor variance application. We proceeded with it now because we deemed that it was appropriate, that finally we have staff on our side. There's no issues. It's not premature to proceed with this application, and everyone's kind of on board with the proposal. So I think the only thing I would say was that these variances have been addressed through design issues, through the site plan process. And if there's any specific questions, I'm more than happy to speak to the specifics.
Okay, Mark, you had a question?
I do, and thank you to the applicant for providing that additional content. Through the chair to the applicant, some of the buildings are going to be apartment buildings, and others are commercial and or industrial. Do you know at this point what the nature of the commercial properties or industrial properties would be, like who the tenants are, the nature at least of the businesses that will be located in those facilities?
Sorry, I think you cut out there multiple times, but I think I get the gist of what you were saying. Basically, what's the nature of the uses? We understand it's industrial. What type of industrial is my understanding of what you were saying, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so 5% of the 2 buildings will be dedicated to just a minor office component. The rest of the 95% will be, a type of more light industrial use. I mean, the way these types of spaces are typically designed is they need to leave it a little bit of flexibility in terms of the exact use that will end up renting the space. It will be light manufacturing, likely something, you know, like a warehousing type use, although it's not confirmed. Of course, it will be a type of use that is permitted within the zoning bylaw, and it will be a type of use that does not require more parking than what we've provided. So the owner understands the limitation, the somewhat limitations they have by not knowing 100% the specific uses, but the intent is to work within the bylaw parameters that exist. You know, there is still some flexibility, but I guess we've proceeded on the assumption 5% office, 95% light industrial or warehouse type use. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And through the chair to staff. So the relief is for the parking lot on one side of the building or one side of the facility that is seeking relief on the number of spaces. I'm assuming the parking lot on the other side of the facility has sufficient spaces to meet the town's plan at minimum. Is it just meeting the town's plan, the minimum, or is there the number of planned spaces exceed the minimum requirement on the other side of the building? I guess what I'm asking for in total, if you add up the number of spaces, is it still a significant? Is it still 54% on the one side, or can we add back in spaces from the other side, kind of to understand the total parking?
Sure, through the chair. So the variance is actually not relating to the, I guess, total number of parking spaces being provided for the overall site. It's just relating to the percentage that are located within that exterior side yard along Harwood. So the applicant, based on the proposed uses of the office and warehousing, the total required parking spaces for the site is 127. They're actually providing a total of 234 parking spaces for the entire site. The variance is strictly relating to the percentage of the required spaces that are located within that side yard along Harwood. So the applicant is providing an excess of the required parking spaces. They're just seeking relief for the location of the spaces along Harwood.
Yeah, thank you. You said it more eloquently than I did. But at the end,
No problem.
At the end, the number of parking spaces in the total property exceed what's the requirement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just
Go ahead, Wasif.
Just through the chair to the committee and the audience, the industrial building south of this particular building here at 637 Harwood or 675 Harwood is also got a series of parking spots abutting Harwood, just like this building would in Building B. That's is that correct, Caitlin?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
Okay, no more questions, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair.
Sorry, Cecil, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. I was wondering whether the client has a timeline for starting construction and completion of things that he might be able to share.
I guess to answer your question, I suppose I don't know exactly in terms of that type of timeline. My client could definitely provide some further insight, but in my opinion, not really being a construction person, being a planner, I can give this kind of general timeline. So it's now, late 2020. I assume that the site plan application portion of this file can likely be complete within the next 4 months. Once you have that, really, it's just going to the town and securing your building permits, which I don't know how fast building permits typically go through the town of Ajax. Let's assume another 6 months. once you have those building permits, you're pretty much ready to construct. The site's vacant, so I'm not sure what type of excavation or something they may do, but I imagine giving those that 4 months and a 6 month timeline, I would say like 9 months to a year is definitely feasible for when you could expect construction. Again, I'm not really on the construction side of things, but just from like a perspective of potential timelines to get the approvals, I think that would be relatively accurate. So I would say, yeah, 9 months to 1 year.
Thank you very much for sharing.
I just have 2 questions that I was hoping to ask. I just wanted to, I'm not sure who can answer this, whether it's the applicant or staff, confirm the question about the entrance and exit of this area. Because when I look at the map, it kind of looks like it's in the middle between what would be Fishlock and Keensford. But one of the answers before had kind of referred to there being lights at Keensford, and I'm just wondering where the entrance exit is for this property.
Sure, I can answer that if you like, through the chair. There are multiple driveway entrances to the site. So there is a driveway entrance off of Harwood, which would be a right-in, right-out only, as there is a median along Harwood at that point. And then the second, well, I guess there's actually 3. The second driveway entrance is to the trucking court, which is located between the 2 buildings, and that entrance is off of Keensford Court. And then there is a third driveway entrance, which is along the edge of Building A, and that accesses all of the vehicular parking along the east side of Building A.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. And I had a question for the applicant, and just kind of curious what the purpose is to have such excess parking. Usually when applicants come to us, it's because there's like not enough parking, and I'm curious what the rationale is why right out of the gate there is so much parking for this facility.
Well, in my experience, typically for these type of industrial buildings, it is typically in excess. Like I guess in working on a lot of residential files, of course, there's applicants that are always trying to reduce the amount of parking. I think part of this one's a little bit different, right? Our client wants to ensure that it is a site that they are foreseeing is most folks will access there via car, and it is an employment hub where we need to ensure that there's enough parking for both folks entering the site, accessing those employment uses, and folks working there as well. Part of providing the amount of parking is to have a bit of the flexibility. As I said before, we're still going to work within, we're going to get this approval, hopefully have this approval, and then we're going to have to work within the confines of what's there, right? So we're not going to be able to add other uses that weren't contemplated prior, or add uses that require more loading than what we have, or more parking. So part of that is just to have the flexibility to ensure that our client can accommodate a sufficient amount of tenants, but those tenants also complying with the as of right use permission. So it just provides a bit of flexibility. And I think in the end of the day, and working with on other files with TrioVest, who is the developer here, it's like their tenants, they just say that they need it. It's just a tenant requirement, really.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that answer. Thank you so much. Any further questions from any of the members? Seeing none, is there anyone in attendance who wanted to speak either for or against and this is specifically for application A24-20 for 675 Harwood? Anybody wanting to speak for or against? Okay, so seeing none, I would like to ask for a motion, please. Okay, Cecil, thank you so much. May I have a seconder? Oh, no, may I have a seconder, please?
Madam Chair, I move to approve minor variance application 82420, subject to all conditions as required by staff, as it is minor in nature, desirable for the appropriate development and use of the land, and it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaws. I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Mark. And is there any discussion on this? Okay, can I ask for a vote, please? A vote for? Okay, all in favor. Okay, so we have voted in favor, so it will now go to the 20 days appeal period.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we'll just give it a minute while we wait for Greg to come back.
I'm running out of water here.
Hi, everyone. Okay, is everyone ready to move on to the next application? Great, thank you. So the final application for this evening is application A21/19 for 522 Kingston Road West. The variance being requested this evening is to permit a minimum setback from the front lot line of 2 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum front yard setback of 13.4 meters. Caitlin, was notice served, and beyond the responses we have received thus far, has there been anything in addition?
Notice was served, and as you indicated, yes, staff did receive numerous emails and voice messages, oral submissions, which have been provided to the committee for their review.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I had just a quick question for you. What, can you just recite the 4 points you said earlier about the 4 points for consideration?
Yes, for the 4 tests for minor variance?
Yes.
Absolutely. 1, that the application is minor in nature. 2, the application is desirable and appropriate for the development or use of the lands. And finally, is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. So we will give you an opportunity to speak to that in just a few moments. We just have a few other items to get through first before we move on to those registered to speak. Okay. So the application submitted for 522 Kingston Road West has been recommended for approval by town staff, subject to 2 conditions outlined in the staff report received. 1, that the owner or applicant obtain approval of the site plan application SP 6/18 to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. And 2, that the owner or applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant with us this evening?
Yes.
Great. And have you received a copy of the staff report?
Yes, I have.
Great. And do you have any questions or comments on the report received?
I have no questions or comments on the report received. I've read the report and read the proposed recommendation and agree with the contents of that report.
Great, thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to members of committee, and if you have anything to add to the application, now's your opportunity.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Michael Fry. I am a land use planner with DG Biddle and Associates. We are a civil engineering and planning firm located in Oshawa. I'm representing my client today, Liquidation Channel Inc., who owns the property at 522 Kingston Road West. With regards to the application and the process, what we would like to start with a thank you to staff for their continued processing of this application. We've worked with staff for a number of months now to develop this site plan and to review the heritage aspects of the neighborhood and try our best to integrate those into the proposal. And as stated in the report, there's a certain balance that's trying to be achieved here, the balance of the overarching policies of both the province, or sorry, of the province, the region, and the town of Ajax, trying to balance those with the context of the site, that being the heritage district of Pickering Village. Recognizing them both and knowing that the heritage aspects are very important, not just to municipal staff, but certainly to the neighborhood. we tried our best to replicate what would likely be built in this situation had this development come forward 100, 120 years ago. And we're very, very happy with the results. So if I may, I'd move into the variance itself. What we're looking for is a variance to the front yard setback. Currently, the zoning bylaw requires a setback that is equal to the average of the setbacks of the two adjacent buildings. And though that setback is identified as approximately 13 meters, we are looking for a setback of 2 meters. And there is some there are some factors that need to be considered when looking at the variance as opposed to the requirement. Number one, that there is a road widening, 5-meter road widening that needs to be dedicated to the region. Number two, the average setback along this stretch of Kingston Road is approximately 7 or 8 meters. The outlier here, of course, is the property to the east, which has a significant setback of 26 meters, and the requirements of the zoning bylaw force us to consider that and look for an average between the two adjacent properties, so that in effect we have a 7-meter setback to the current front lot line, and then the road widening takes 5 meters away from that. So if I may go through the 4 tests, the official plan, the Region of Durham official plan, and the Town of Ajax official plan identify this stretch of Kingston Road as a regional corridor. Of course, regional corridors are meant for higher density development, infill development, intensification, and the proposed development, of course, it introduces uses, apartment building, residential dwellings, and retail uses, which is in keeping with the requirements of the region and the town's official plan. And for that reason, it meets the first test. With regards to the intent of the zoning bylaw for the town of Ajax, there is a there is what appears to be that significant variance that we're looking for, and like I said, it's not the numeric value of the variance that is what the determining factor is. It's the context of the site and the location of this property on this portion of the street where the setbacks of adjacent properties are significant. And in order to create a streetscape, in order to create an interesting public space, it's important that that the building meets the street. And though it is a 7-meter setback from the current front lot line, the ultimate 2-meter setback actually pushes forward the urban design requirements of the Town of Ajax official plan, and addresses the common setback as determined by other adjacent properties along the stretch of Kingston Road. And for that reason, it meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. And I'd like to identify as well that there are no other variances that are being sought. We are not seeking variances for side yard setback, for height, for parking, for density. That is the one variance that we are seeking, and for that reason we meet to the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Now the question whether or not it's minor in nature, and I have received copies of the correspondence from the concerned residents, and can say that the requested variance, although it looks like it's a significant change, it is in fact minor in nature, because we are, like I said before, maintaining the general setback of the properties along this stretch of Kingston Road, that being the 7 to 8 meters setback. The proposed setback is 7 meters from the existing front lot line, and ultimately 2 meters because of the road widening. So for that reason, it's minor in nature. And finally, desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land. This is a regional corridor. This is a transit corridor. This is a part of the town of Ajax that is identified for intensification and growth. And like I said, there are challenges to balance the requirements of the heritage district and the heritage context, but there are also challenges to implement the requirements of the Planning Act, or sorry, of the provincial policy statement and the growth plan to achieve those densities which are transit supportive, achieve a mix of uses, and to achieve, to rely on existing services in the area. So, of course, existing hard and soft public infrastructure. Like I said, we've received comments. We've received the set of comments from the concerned neighbors, and I do want to identify again that there is no requested variance to parking. That we are meeting the minimum requirement for parking, and of course that's 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit in the apartment building, plus the required parking for the retail component, and that's all being contained on the site, away from the street, because of course we're trying to implement good urban design goals. And the variance, the concern with regards to a 2-meter setback and the potential dangers for pedestrians or for vehicles entering or exiting the site. We recognize that Kingston Road is a large, or is a primary arterial, and that the street itself can accommodate the additional traffic from this site. And of course, I'm not a traffic engineer, but from what I understand from my years of experience working with traffic engineers, a development like this with 8 dwelling units would generate approximately four movements per hour at the peak hour. That means 1 car every 15 minutes. So that the impact on the on Kingston Road traffic is very, very small. And again, with regards to safety for pedestrians, it's not the 2 meters from the building facade to the curb. It's actually 2 meters to the lot line, plus the 5-meter widening, plus the existing boulevard, which is approximately 3 meters. So there's significant amount of room for a car pulling out of the site to stop and to allow for pedestrian traffic and to view both ways down Kingston Road and make safe movements from that driveway. I'm happy to take any questions from the committee.
Are there any questions from members of committee for the applicant? Mark?
Yes, thank you to the applicant for that information. Yeah, and you know, we did receive a lot of correspondence. Some of the correspondence, and we appreciate it. Obviously, we take all the correspondence we get seriously, and we take the time to read through it and give a consideration. Wanted to point out that many of the correspondence had to raise concern about areas outside the scope of the committee or scope of this particular application. There was some mention of parking, for example, and you know, I wanted to point out that parking is not something we're looking at in today's meeting. But what we are looking at is only one exception, which is the setback. And I'd like to explore that one further. So I think to the applicant, you may have given this information and I wasn't able to write it down as fast as you were saying it. But can you talk, or could staff talk about the neighbors that are directly proximate to the subject property and what their setback is? So, you know, we're looking at, you know, the 2-meter exception. And I understand that the town's plan takes into consideration the average of the area, and there's one outlier that's, you know, 26. So kind of discounting the outlier and looking at the direct neighbors, what's the setback of those properties currently, or would staff be able to address that, or the applicant?
Oh, yes, certainly. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a list of the setbacks of the existing buildings, starting from George Jones Street and moving towards the east. 7.6 meters, 5.8 meters, 10.7 meters. The subject property is currently 8 meters setback. To the east of that is 26.1. 15.1 and then 5.2. So you can see there's certainly a range in there. Those two outliers, those being greater than the 10 meters, are immediately to the east of the subject property.
Okay. Okay, I may have other questions, but that'll do for now, and I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the applicant, the access to this property, is it going to be kind of in the middle of this lot? Is that how people are entering and exiting this lot? So it's not going to be beside either one of the existing properties?
That's a great question. Thank you. The one of the challenges to the site was to fit the property into, or sorry, to fit the development into the property and maintain all of the engineering design standards. And one of those design standards was to provide for driveway flares, which did not encroach, did not exceed the property boundaries. So what we did was we placed the driveway towards the center of the site and placed the residential entrance on the east side of the site and the retail on the west side of the site, so that the two uses were very clearly different. It was a great challenge. We found a number of historic buildings in and around southern Ontario that had a similar design with the archway over the driveway, including significant research into heritage districts in the town of Dundas and the town of Bowmanville and other locations, and of course Unionville, and drew examples from there. And for that reason, we have a different facade treatment on the west side of the site where the retail is located, and again the residential portion is residential entrance is designed differently to look different than the retail and to distinguish itself from the retail. So sorry, to answer your question, yes, we did push the driveway into the center, and we thought that was a great opportunity to separate the uses.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for the applicant by members of committee? Seeing none, so we have a number of individuals with us this evening looking to speak to the application. We have 7 registered that we're going to go in the order that they are registered with. If there's anyone else that is here to speak to the application, after we've gone through the list that's been provided to me thus far, you'll have that opportunity to add your comments or concerns. And just like Mark had mentioned in his previous comment, just a reminder that the application before us is to consider the front yard setback. Any other matters pertaining to zoning, such as parking, building height, are beyond the purview of this committee as they have been deemed to be compliant with the zoning bylaw. So let's we'll hopefully keep that in mind. So the first individual we have with us to speak to the application this evening is Hua Wang. Are you with us this evening?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
This is Michael. You can hear me, Chairman?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay, okay. I just got a letter about 1 week ago regarding about this applications, and thank you for the opportunity to let me join the meeting. And my question is, because I never go through this, maybe it sounds stupid, but please just listen. Is this the meeting tonight? Is we're going to make a decision on the site plan, or you just like a hearing to collect all the information from the applications and applicants, also neighbors?
We are only considering the zoning variance request this evening. So this isn't a public hearing to consider approval of the actual site plan application. Through the review process of the application, a variance was identified for a front yard setback variance. This committee's scope is to either approve or refuse the variance request itself. So before a permit would be able to be obtained, this variance would need to be approved.
So not just the variance, and sorry, it's just for the variance tonight, right?
Just for the variance, and yes, we would be making a decision either to approve or refuse the application this evening.
So okay, are we going to have some kind of other hearings for these applications in the future?
If through the review process any other revisions occur, there may be a need for it if staff determine any other areas of non-compliance. However, at this time, the only public process is for the minor variance application. The site plan approval application does not require a public hearing process. Perhaps Caitlin or Eric, you can just confirm that for me, just so I'm not misspeaking.
Yep, through the chair, that is correct. Because the use is permitted here, the proposal is limited to a site plan application, which does not have a public consultation process. So the only reason why we do have the public consultation process tonight is because of the minor variance application.
Okay, because my property just behind this property. So what's my rights?
So your rights are exactly what you're doing today, attending the minor variance application, voicing your concerns. And the chair has explained that there are appeal rights, but we can get into that again, I guess, later too, depending on what the decision is.
I see. Last question. This will be like a townhouse?
No. So the proposal here is a 3-story mixed-use building with commercial units on the first floor and then residential apartment units on the second and third floors.
Okay. How many units?
It's a total of 8 residential units and then 2 commercial units.
But how many units total? 5?
So 8 residential and 2 commercial, so 10 units total.
Okay,
but
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, only 8 residential. Yeah.
8 residential. How long will it take to, if everything get approved? How long will it last to build this building?
So if the variance were to be approved and if site plan approval was achieved, like the actual construction, I mean that's really for the applicant and owner to answer. It really depends on what their intents are. I don't know if the current owner is the one that will be building it or if his intentions are to sell it to a builder. And construction is really contingent on their plans and their workers.
Roughly how long? No guarantees, of course. Everything's a variance. 1 year?
For construction?
Yeah, for construction.
I think that would be a safe assumption.
Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Great. And are there any questions from members of committee for Michael?
Sorry, through the chair, can we just confirm, maybe Alec, you can confirm that we have Michael's last name?
W-A-N-G.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions. Moving on to second registered attendee for this evening, Louis DiTaccio. Are you with us this evening?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. If you don't mind introducing yourself, and now's your chance to speak to the application.
My name is Louis DiTaccio, and I'm property owner of 516 Kingston Road West, just adjacent to the property in question. I basically am looking at a 2-meter setback on a property that basically bylaw is 13.5. I don't think is a minor variance. I think it's a major variance. So, I mean, that two meters is basically practically going to be on the road after you take that the 5 meters that they're going to do with the road widening. It's only going to be 2 meters. So it's basically practically on the road, and it's going to be blocking views of us that are set back further back. So this building is going to basically take up, I think it's going to be danger in in people coming in and out of my place of business and other residential in the area because of the proximity to the road. And as well as I understand that the 3 meters or the 3 stories is permitted, but again, looking at the drawings and looking at the variance between my property and the property in question is only 0.6 meters. So basically, my home is looking at a brick wall because there's no windows that are allowed on the subject property due to the distance between the 2 properties.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the resident? Sorry, Wasif?
Just a comment to the speaker. First of all, thank you for being here and raising your concern, especially as a neighbor that's abutting the property. I really appreciate your feedback. I guess the only other thing that I wanted to have, because I think the committee was concerned about your first point, sir, as well, in terms of the minimum setback, especially once you take out the 5 meters for the widening that the region is going to be doing. But I think in assessing other properties that are along the same line, like I'm literally on the map right now, taking a look at a few of the properties further away from you on the other side, on the west side. And they are actually set almost just as close, if not closer to the road, 2 properties down at, I think it's 530 Kingston Road, the grooming shop there as well. That's actually set even closer than what this is proposed at. So there are other properties. Definitely agree the fact that this that is still a single story building versus this is a mixed use 3-story. I think that point is noted, but again, we're only here, as the chair mentioned, that only in terms of the variance on the front. Unfortunately, that's all we're here for, because that's the only variance that's being really sought from. So,
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none. Okay, thank you, Mr. DiStaccio, for your comments and participating. Moving on to the next registered attendee, Martin Kirstens. Are you with us this evening?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. My name's Martin Kirstens. I'm representing my father, who lives at 41 Sherwood Road East, northwest connection to the property in question with the setback. I realize that a number of the properties along Kingston Road, as stated to the west, are or would be probably as close to Kingston Road after the 5 meter is taken for the expansion of Highway 2. I guess the biggest issue is really the structure itself being out of place in the area as far as characteristics. They've all been modified homes. I realize that we're, or you are only dealing with the setback. So I will bow out at this time with regards to any comments because I realize the staffing has already basically put in an approval report. And I can only assume that really as far as putting any of this or putting an argument in against the proximity with the 2 meter setback will come to no avail. So thank you for your time, and hopefully, although I don't think there will be an opportunity to voice an opinion against the characteristics of the new dwelling that's going to be going, or new building that's going to be going in there, but we will, my father and I will keep an eye on this moving forward. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you for your participation. And just to reiterate, despite staff recommending approval, a decision has not been made by the committee yet. We'll make sure to take into consideration any comments by the residents and then use that in assisting with our decision this evening. But thank you. Is there any questions or comments from members of committee before we move on? Seeing none, okay, thank you. Moving on to the next attendee, George Browse. Are you present this evening?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. If you don't mind introducing yourself and as your opportunity to speak to the application.
Yes, you bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for committee members. My name is George Browse. I purchased the property 526 Kingston Road West in 1989. I'm a full-time, long-time resident in this building. I've stated in my submission my views regarding the value of this particular section of Kingston Road and the value to all in the community from a historical and aesthetic perspective. I will now confine my comments to the proposed structure, a 3-story building, taller than any other building on this strip, dwarfing all the other buildings. How does this add streetscape value that the report mentions? Regardless of how the face of this building is presented, it dwarfs building. It's not part of the historical architectural presentation of the street. It's out of place at that size. How does that preserve the neighborhood? The proposal to place a 3-story building so close to the walkway and the road, so close to the sidewalk cyclists, very unexperienced cyclists, and so close to the pedestrians, only about 6 feet away from them. Buildings so close to the street are virtually only from George Jones to Church Street. And there's no mention by anyone, the buildings on the south side of this strip are quite a bit back from the road. The buildings that are so close to the street, George Jones to Church Street, they're an aesthetic disaster. So a new project is proposed, which will replicate what is proven to be an aesthetic disaster on other parts of the street. It's terrible. The proposed footprint of this large building on a small lot, covering such an extensive area, far greater coverage than any structure on Kingston Road, including the Masonic Tall, the old Masonic Tall that the town expensively restored. They all have green space, all respect nature. As well, the proposed building goes from lot line to lot line. You just heard the representative from 516 Kingston Road. How big? There are no existing buildings on this strip which go from lot line to lot line. Part of the existing appeal of this strip is the green space between buildings. How does crushing your building up to your neighbor not adversely affect that neighbor or the streetscape value? A 3-story brick wall and 6 feet from a walkway denies myself as the neighbor a view of the street from my home. These things are things that people do naturally. They view the sky, the clouds, the sun, and all of these things will be denied to me a great deal because of this large building. The developer wishes to add to his building by going closer to the street and adding about 6,000 square feet beyond the frontage of my property. This is an impact, not a minor impact on my quality of life and my privacy. The proposed building has 16 windows over and above the height of the roof of my home. And I know you're talking about a setback, but it also, the report talks about privacy and impact on neighbors. 16 windows to stare out of. How many people here today would consider that this would not be an impact on their personal privacy? This building does not enhance the nature and character of the area. This is not a minor variance. There's been so little time to prepare for today, as information came so late. Complete information was so late. So little time to inform citizens of the surrounding properties, on the surrounding properties. So little time to discuss the project with these neighbors who may be affected by the project. So a few adjacent properties indeed were informed, only 60 meters, I believe. The meeting announced so close to the holiday season when people are busy and distracted. Also during a pandemic when people are existing in their family bubbles. This is so unfair. I had to wonder, was it planned? Anyway, thank you for listening to my presentation, and I welcome any question.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rouse. Do any members of the committee have any questions or comments? No, seeing none. Maybe just before we move on, Caitlin, can we just confirm the requirements of the Planning Act as they relate to minor variance applications for notice?
Sure, through the chair. For Committee of Adjustment applications being minor variance applications, the requirements of the Planning Act do stipulate a 60-meter circulation area from the subject property. So notice was sent out in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act for this application.
Great, thank you, Caitlin. And timing of the meetings for 10 days prior to the actual meeting taking place, correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next registered attendee. If there's no questions from members of committee, Jeff Browse, are you on with us this evening?
Yes, I am. So I'm next door at 526 Kingston Road. I'm here today to speak about the variance issue of moving the building forward by 37.5 feet. And I'm going to start off by referring to the Town of Ajax report that I received today from Eric. I'm going to refer to first on page 2 on paragraph 3. And it says, a goal of this town is to ensure that the village remains an historic enclave that provides a range of commercial and residential services. We're losing the historical aspect by tearing down this building and building this monstrosity of a building. Paragraph 6, the subject property is a designated village center in the Town of Ajax official plan, the historical part of Ajax. Paragraph 7, the historic character of the village. The development within the village center designation shall be compatible with existing development in terms of its design and scale. This building is grossly bigger than anything else and a complete design of anything else in the village. In the Town of Ajax report on page 2 says it needs to comply. Also in paragraph 7, shall respect the form, style, setting, and scale of existing historic house form residential development. This deviates from that dramatically, and that's in your report. Page 3, paragraph 2, but nonetheless enhances the nature and characteristics of the area, coexists with existing development without causing adverse impacts on surrounding properties. Adverse impacts, 16 windows, 1 meter from the property line, 3 stories, blocking the sun to George's property. Moving the building 37.5 feet, 3 stories in advance of where it is allowed to be. Blocking sun, removing trees, the historical aspects, the 100-year-old trees, we're gonna gun those ones too. That's just not right. We're gonna flip over to page 5, paragraph 2. If the necessary road widening were to be applied. It was in the paper on Friday, the road widening is coming. So why would they say if the necessary road widening is coming? It is coming. Paragraph 3. The impact of the proposed variance on adjacent properties, the streetscape and the subject property itself must be considered. The streetscape, we're putting a building 2 meters from the lot line, 3 stories tall. One of the committee members mentioned some of the other buildings are just as close. They're 1 story, dramatically changing the streetscape. Paragraph 4, the general consistent with the existing building setbacks on adjacent properties. The adjacent properties that Michael just mentioned, 7.6 meters, 5.8 meters, 10.7 meters, 26.1, 15.1, 5.2. They're looking for 2 meters. The average distance is 17. They're looking for 2. So that paragraph is shot again. Paragraph 5, the proposed setbacks would also not adversely impact adjacent properties for a sightline perspective. If you're driving down Kingston Road, you're coming westbound, you will not even see George's house because of this ginormous building. So does it affect the streetscape? It absolutely does. Paragraph 6, the requested variance is considered to be minor in nature. Minor in nature, and pay the general intent and purpose of the official plan. This does not reflect the intent of the official plan. It's a tremendous stretch of creativity by the town staff to say that this is a minor variance. So let's talk a little bit more about the minor variance. Let's just look at a couple committee of adjustment cases. A11/20, they had a 1 a minor variance, height difference on a deck. A2720, they wanted to put a small covered patio. A23/20, they wanted to put a small room in the backyard. Now ours, A21, is this a minor variance? They're proposing to build more than 6,000 square feet, more than 5 times the neighbor's property, but in front of the property line. In this variance they're asking, the minor variance they're asking for, they're looking to build more than 6,000 square feet. In that 6,000 square feet, let's see what they're going to build. They're going to build 2 commercial units, 7 bathrooms, 2 kitchens, 4 laundry rooms, 2 living rooms, 7 bedrooms, a hallway, and a stairwell in that minor variance. That is not a minor variance. They're taking 85% of the front property away, leaving 15%. They're taking 85% is the request. Major, major variance. I'm sure if any of our kids or grandkids that were at an academic career, if they came home with a report card and said, I got 15% this year, Dad, Granddad, how great is that? Would that be a minor problem or a major problem? I think we can all say that's a very, very major problem. They're not looking for 1 foot. They're looking for 85% of the side yard setback and to build over 6,000 square feet in front of the line on 3 stories. 40% of the building that they propose is ahead of the property line, ahead of the bylaw line, 40%. They're proposing 5 3-bedroom units, 2 2-bedroom units plus den. Everybody knows in the building industry that if you say it's a den, you're treated differently. They're bedrooms. They want to build 7 3-bedroom units and 1 2-bedroom units plus 2 commercial units. If the developer built 1 and 2 bedrooms like the norm, usually it's 50% 1 bedrooms, 50% 2 bedrooms, he could build the building, a very nice building he could build without violating the official plan, the current zoning, or the bylaws. They're asking for an incredibly aggressive variance, not a minor variance, an incredibly aggressive variance. The proposed variance also has a very negative impact on the community, the streetscape in the area. The consequences of cutting down all the trees in the area on the property. You see that the building goes 1 meter from the property line. You have to take every tree down. Moving the building 37.5 feet forward, you have to cut down all the trees in the front yard. What makes this part of historic Pickering Village so nice are the giant trees, the houses and the buildings set back, and the historical feel. They are looking to take all of that away. The big majestic trees on the property, they're going to cut them all down. The trees next door on George's property that are right on the property line, because you know most people like your houses as well, are planted at the side of the property, closer to the property line, closer to the lot. To build this building, he would have to cut down all of George's trees or kill all of George's trees. I know that's going to be a site plan issue, but that's a negative impact. Does it adversely affect George? Does it adversely affect our property? It absolutely does. Cutting down all those trees dramatically affects our area. I know the official plan calls for higher density, limited parking, higher lot coverage, limited side and backyard setbacks, the backyard setback at 7.5 meters, and the front setback of 13.4 meters. It's never the intention of the official plan to build an additional apartment building and 2 commercial units in front of the bylaw line. It was never the intent. So if you look at your variables important to you that the committee chair mentioned to start, does the application meet the intent of the official plan? The official plan is higher density. Everybody would agree with that. Nowhere in the official plan did they say, we want to build an apartment building 40% bigger than the original building, over 6,000 square feet in front of the lot line. Nowhere that's in the official plan. So your first point, no way. It's intensification, but that's dramatic. Your second point, does it comply with the intent of the bylaw? The intent of the bylaw is very clear. 13.4 meters from the lot line. They're going and asking for 2 meters. Dramatically different, 85% relief. I know Michael was talked about is put it in context. Yes, let's put it in context, members of the committee. If you look at the staff report that I cited the paragraphs and the quotes from the paragraph, dramatically different. It does not apply to the bylaw. And the next point, does it comply with zoning? No, it doesn't. It's dramatically off zoning. Your next point, is the development appropriate? Even by the city's letter, it is not appropriate. It doesn't apply on the historic side. It doesn't apply on the streetscape side, and it affects the neighbors adversely. The first gentleman that was representing his dad, he was just frustrated because he didn't think he had anything else to say. But it does adversely affect him, and that's why he as a son called him. Is it appropriate for the area? It is absolutely not appropriate for the area. Does the application, is it desirable for the community or community intent? It is absolutely not desirable for the community intent. And this is probably why we, at the committee meeting, we were last, because there's such a public outcry. I know you had a ton of responses, and much more than the other ones that you received. The neighborhood is just going crazy. I was walking my dog on the weekend, and it was one person after another just completely shocked that the committee, that this builder would be asking and seeking such a dramatic variance. And the town of Ajax calls it a minor variance. I wanted to thank the committee for the consideration, and a special thank you for the overwhelming support and voices of the neighbors that expressed their objection to this application. I want to wholeheartedly say that we object to the submittal. It's not minor in variance. If you look at the numbers, it's stunning and very aggressive on what they're asking for. I'm very confident the committee has heard the voices of the community with the number of responses you've had. And the application does not meet the intention of the official plan, the bylaws, the intent, and we reject the application completely. Thank you very much, committee chair.
Great, thank you, Mr. Browse. I certainly appreciate your comments and concerns that you've raised to us. Do any members of committee have any questions for Mr. Browse? No, I'm seeing none at this time. Again, thank you, Mr. Browse, for your participation this evening. Moving on to the.
I just wanted to mention one more thing, that this has been going on for a long time. We've had a couple conversations with the city on it, but I was really, and I know that the laws say you have to give so much notice, but in this pandemic time, mail is so slow that the town of Ajax really needed to do a much better job in getting the word out quicker. I know a number of the neighbors just received the notification on in the last couple of days, and some were not even able to get into the Zoom call because they received it so late. So I don't think that was might have qualified by the timelines, but the town of Ajax needs to do a much better job at understanding the current pandemic situation and adjusting their rules accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Art and Claudia Robson. Are you with us this evening? Mr. and Mrs. Robson. Okay, not sure if they're on the call with us right now, so we'll move on from them and circle back after we've heard from the last registered attendee for this evening. Michelle Landry, are you on the call with us this evening?
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Both Art Robson and Michelle Landry are on the call tonight. I'm not sure if they're having any difficulties with their microphones, however.
Okay, thank you. We'll give them a moment. It might just be a matter of being muted. If they can just check that they are unmuted on their devices, that would be appreciated, so that you can have your opportunity to speak to the application.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, who is this?
This is Michelle Landry.
Okay, Michelle, if you'd like to go ahead, I believe you were on mute before, so if you'd like to introduce yourself and speak to the application, now's your opportunity. Just before we move on, I'll just, we'll reiterate that we'll go back to Art and Claudia Robson after. Hopefully they can have a chance to speak to the application. So Michelle, you're welcome to go ahead.
You want me to speak now?
Yes, please.
Okay. I wrote a big long message to Eric. I don't know if the committee received my big long email. Hopefully they did.
Yes, we are in receipt of it.
Okay, good. Couple of things I just want to say prior is there was somebody asked a question about where will the driveway be placed. I got very confused by that. It sounds like they are going to put two driveways in, one on the east side and one on the west side. Is that what they're planning to do?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, that is incorrect. There's only one driveway or access point, and it's in the middle of the property. That's what's proposed.
In the middle of the property. Okay, it's hard to see those things in the pictures. Anyways, I will read part of what I've written. Is that all right? Because my first point was the word minor. I also had a really hard time with the word minor. Under bylaw section 6.32, it states that at present, the required minimum setback from the front lot line is 13.4 meters. And now they're asking for a 2 meter. That's quite a variance as far as I'm concerned. That's about, that is a 11.4 meters difference. And also, another reason I wonder if it is minor is I didn't have much time, but I did try to check out some of the bylaws that may be affected by this change. And I was wondering if section 6.32-7 and would it be also 6.32-10, 6.34-4, and 6.4.2? The way I read them, those bylaws seem to be in question. Also, my big concern there is once this precedence has been given to this location, will this 2-meter variance now become the norm? And again, that's minimum. Now, my other question had to do with the timing of this sudden notice. It's my understanding that the planning committee was aware that the present owners have been making these requests since 2018, and that negotiations back and forth have been going on. According to the letter, I'm all over the place, sorry. But according to this, there have been changes made having to do with the building, but nothing has been said about the location, the variances, having the building put only 2 meters away from the lot line. And then they keep throwing in about the Metrolink. What if the Metrolink, a dream of mine, doesn't go through? Why can't we deal with this variance with today's numbers and today's measurements and where everything is right now? I think that'd be a lot easier to understand. Where exactly will this building be? And also, as in the statement from the town, it says once 522 is demolished, it's considered a vacant lot. So the design of the new building must be in line with the 2 buildings on either side. And as Louis says, if it ends up 2 meters from the proposed lot line, his building's going to be way back there, and George's building is going to be way back there. Really, it should end up that clause is in there for a purpose. I don't understand why the town, the developers are not making the builder look at that and try to figure out another way of doing it. So my question is basically, what is 2 meters? Is it meters? Is it 7 meters? I think right now it's very confusing. Then we talked about traffic flow. I have a really big concern about traffic flow. Not for my sake, it's not going to interfere with my getting on or off the road. But for the people on the west side, on the north side, sorry, I'm on the south side. People on the north side, when they try to get out, their only way of getting out is going to be to go west. And it's my understanding that Metrolinx is only going to allow one road going west. And how are 15 vehicles from this property going to merge into the flow of traffic? And my big concern is, how do the residents anywhere west of this building, how do they get onto the highway?
Well, I'm gonna interrupt you there for a moment and just remind you that the only item that we are speaking to this evening is the front yard setback. Transportation considerations and parking are not before or part of this committee's purview this evening.
Yes, but that's going to be hampered with this 2 meter. And right now, I mean, I watch the people at 522 who live there right now. They have to come out of their driveway. They have to come out back, and they practically have to get onto Kingston Road before they know it's safe. So it is very dangerous for them right now. It is very dangerous for anybody else west. But imagine having a building blocking your view of the traffic coming from the east going west. And that traffic, it goes quite quickly, okay? It is very dangerous. So I am worried about the traffic flow. And my other thing about it is having this building so close to the front of the property. I do worry about the environmental effects it's going to have. My property is south, and I have experienced flooding in the past. I've dealt with it. Having this big, huge building moved up closer, it is going to change any streams, any underground water levels, the water tables there. Is there going to be an environmental study done? Because I think it is going to affect the water flow and the water tables. And then, like I said, this variance, once it happens, I see it happening to a lot of the other properties in this area. So I've come up with a thought, an idea that maybe could be taken back to the builders. Why don't they ask for a variance to the north end of their property and build this building that they want in the north end and allow the parking spaces to go in front of it? It would look very nice. It would look very much like the building on 516. It would complement Louis' building. And you wouldn't require this 2-meter variance. It would allow the people to the west to be able to exit their properties without any difficulties. Pedestrian traffic would not be interfered with. It would be a perfect solution.
We appreciate your suggestion, but again, that is not what is before the committee. We're not here to negotiate the design of the development. We're only here to consider the front yard setback variance as it is presented to us this evening.
Okay.
Okay. Do any members of committee have any questions for Michelle? Any comments? No? Okay. Well, again, thank you, Michelle, for your participation this evening. We'll move on to the last registered attendee. We'll see if they hopefully have been able to sort out the technical issues on their end. Art and Claudia Robson, are you with us this evening?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank goodness. Actually, I'm Art Robeson. I live at 8 George Jones Street, just around the corner. And I've talked to several of the neighbors in the last few days. Actually, the last few speakers have said almost everything that I could possibly say to you already, or could possibly say at all. I do have a couple questions, and I do want to comment on something that you're not here for. I understand that. I'd like to know who Liquidation Channel Inc. is. As the owner, this does make a difference. Mixed residential, commercial, most of the buildings and houses are the owner is living in them and running a business. This is obviously not that at all. Is Liquidation Channel Inc. going to actually live there? Because people that live in their own building have a tendency to take better care of it. Or is their intention just to get the permits and then flip it and have somebody else build it and just make money? It does make a difference. If I were you in your position, I'd want to know who they are, because I want to know who they are. The one thing I do want to say, I know you're not here for it, but sometimes bylaws don't make sense. And I'd like to just use common sense. You're going to build a building, or they're proposing to build a building that has 23 bedrooms in it, eight residential units. And they've only allowed 10 parking spots. Just something tells me if you took the average apartment, the average number of people in the apartment, a 3-bedroom apartment, you're going to have at least a mother and a father and a child, but you're probably going to have more than that. So you could easily have 25 to 30 people living in those 8 apartments. Parking, they've allowed 10 spots for 8 residences, and a lot of people have 2 cars. Some even have 3. Then you have the 2 units in the front. Oh, no, and by the way, then they only have two other spots for visitors for the 8 buildings, for the 8 apartments. Just two spots for visitors. And then you have the 2 commercial spaces in the front where they're only allowing three parking spots. We got to. It may not be why you're talking today, but somebody's got to use some common sense here. There's not enough parking for a building that size. It just doesn't matter how you add up the numbers. There's not enough parking. So my question, once again, you're not here for that purpose, but somebody's got to answer the question. Where are they going to park?
Yeah, again, certainly appreciate the concern. Staff have determined that the parking requirements have been satisfied, but just to hopefully allay some of the concerns that have been raised this evening, either Caitlin or Eric, can you verify that a transportation impact study or assessment has been completed on the site plan as part of the site plan application to determine that the parking is sufficient for the area?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in a parking utilization study or a parking study is not required as the parking's been met. There was no traffic impact study either required due to the scale of this development. As the applicant had explained earlier too, the scale of this development does not warrant detailed traffic analysis or concerns. In both transportation section, as well as regional staff at the transportation section, did not require any type of traffic impact study for this development proposal. Traffic was, in terms of analysis or study, traffic components were limited to site circulation to ensure that vehicles can maneuver in and out of the site.
I know I have trouble getting in and out on George Jones onto Kingston Road. Over the last 30 years, it's changed a lot. But as I think the previous person speaking just said, when I'm going out George Jones onto Kingston and I want to go east, that's a very difficult way because traffic has picked up. And I'm not going to want to go west to get back to going east because we're going to have a casino built around the corner not too long from now. So I'm not going to go in that direction either. But it's not just me. And then you're going to add another, we say 15 parking spots or 12 parking spots or whatever you want to say. It's not going to be enough anyway. And you can say it's not part of what you're looking at. It wasn't necessary, but it's a problem that you're going to have to deal with sometime because that's just not proper planning by the town to build something like that and not allow in the real world, not allow enough space for the people that are there. And getting out of that parking spot, it's already been addressed, but you put a building that close to the street, it's going to be difficult for people to get out, depending on how the street is broadened. Just one last comment too, and it's once again, it falls into your area. When you have 2 commercial spots that small, 450 square feet each, I don't know what businesses you think are going to go in there, but they've got to have people that, if they're in business, they're going to want to have people that come to see them. And once again, they've got to have some place to put their car. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I think there's some planning. I'd go back to my very first point that I made was who is Liquidation Channel Inc. and what is their intention? Because if it's just to get the approval and then flip it, then why did we go through the exercise? Because this building definitely does not maintain the character and the nature of Pickering Village. It doesn't matter what you say, a building that size, and by the way, it's a nice looking building. They did a good job. It's to me, it looks a lot nicer than the building that's there. I'll give them full credit for that, but it just doesn't fit into Pickering Village. It doesn't fit into the character and the nature of what we've got here. Thank you for at least letting me get it off my chest.
Great, thank you for your time this evening. Are any members of committee have any questions for Mr. Robeson? Seeing none. Great, thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Robeson, for your time this evening. So that is the end of the registered public attendees. Is there anyone with us this evening that would like to speak to the application that has not had a chance to so far? Okay, I'm hearing none. Well, then I'll turn it back to my fellow members of committee if there's any questions or comments for either the applicant or any of the attendees this evening. Sorry, Laurie.
Thank you very much. Through you to Chair to staff. Can I please ask for verification? The 2 meters, the 5 meters that Metrolinx is going to be taking over, what happens should Metrolinx not widen the road? What happens to that 5 meters? Can the applicant, this application, the way it is, if we were to approve it the way it's worded, and Metrolinx did not widen the road, and I'm understanding that it was announced earlier this week that it was going to happen, but just hypothetically speaking, I'd like clarification that if it did not happen, what happens to that 5 feet or 5 meters that has been accounted for?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so one of the conditions of site plan approval is that the 5 meters be conveyed to the region. So that means that regardless of them going forward with this project, they're still going to get the land. So that's why we're using the 2 meters instead of the 7, because there's no matter what, there's going to be a new lot line set because the lands are going to be reduced in area. Everything's pushed back. So if it doesn't go forward, it'll still be 2 meters because this one property will have a different lot line than everyone else. And you see that a lot in a lot of situations because this is the one free chance the region gets to get the conveyance versus having to do, expropriation from every property. When you go through a development review process, the region, the town, any public authority can request conveyances. So this is what they use as the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Any further questions or comments from committee? Cecil?
Through the chair, I have a question for staff. Given the minor variance before us, I was wondering what metrics were used to determine that there will be no blind spots for vehicles moving in and out of that space onto Kingston Road.
There are no real metrics, I guess you could say. However, it has been looked at from transportation staff. And I just want to keep in mind that the current building is set back 8 meters from the existing front lot line. This new building would be 7 meters. In terms of the vehicles going in and out of the sites, for example, at 516 or 526 Kingston Road West, they already have their own, I guess you could say, potential sightline issues. And that's not going to change regardless of a new building being there. For the east side, you have the driveway completely on the east side. It's not directly adjacent to, I guess you would say, the most west side. So regardless of a new building being there, it's not going to impact it. Once again, it's only 1 meter in front of where if it were to be built, 1 meter in front of where the current building is. On the west side, there's 2 driveway entrances for that property, and both are heavily bounded by trees. So I guess you could almost make the argument that there already is at present sightline issues, and regardless of a new building being there, that's not going to make much of a difference. And I just want to, for the record too, although there's a 5 meter road widening, that does not mean that it's going to be directly road and then property line. There's always a boulevard between the road. So there's always going to be the opportunity for a car to edge out before it can go, which is the case for any building or property along this strip, especially as you go further east when the properties are much closer to the front lot lines, where the 2 meter is very, what you could argue, in character.
Just a comment on that, Eric. They're going to widen the road by 5 meters. It's already tough to get out of 526. When the road's 5 meters wider, it is going to be brutal. And yes, there is 2 driveways, one on either side, but they're not linked. They're not circular. You can't go to the back and come in one and go to the other. If you drive in one, you have to back out. And if the road's 5 meters wider, because Metrolinx is going to take that 5 meters, and it's tough already, it's going to be brutal with the road 5 meters wider.
Thank you. Cecil, anything? Does that answer your
Thank you
question?
very much.
Okay. Anything else from members of committee this evening? Okay. Seeing none, thank you. In that case, if we could look for a motion on the application. Lori?
Through the chair, I'm going to motion that we approve application A21-19 for 522 Kingston Road in Ajax. I apologize, I'm going to kind of go off script a little bit, and to everybody who's listening, I just want everyone to know that we take all the comments that were made very seriously, and we're very aware of the concerns. But as has been mentioned by my colleagues already, we can't base our recommendation and our judgment based on the concerns. That even our personal opinions can't play into it. We can only look at the application as it's presented. And with that in mind, I'm going to ask for approval of the application as it does meet the 4 tests for that one variance that is being asked for, and based on that it meets the 4 tests, and that there's 2, recognizing there's 2 conditions as well.
Great, thank you, Lori. And is there a seconder on the motion? Cecil?
Yep.
Great, thank you. And all those in favor of approval of the application subject to the 2 conditions?
Before approval, through the chair, Lori, that will be subject to conditions as per staff, the 2 conditions, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cecil. Again, all those in favor of approval of the application? Those opposed? Great. The application is approved 3-2, subject to the 20-day appeal period and the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Thank you very much, members of the committee.
Great. And thank you everyone for your attendance this evening. That concludes the public portion or the application portion of this meeting this evening. Moving on to any other or new business for members of committee. Wasif.
Mr. Chair, would you be kind enough to perhaps remind the audience the fact that there's an appeal period on this as well?
Yep. As Wasif has mentioned, the application, while it has been approved with three recommending approval and 2 dissents, there is a 20-day appeal period. Should you choose to do so, within that 20-day appeal period, you can appeal to the local planning appeals tribunal through the town staff, and if appeal is received within that 20 days, the application would then be forwarded to the LPAT. If there's no appeals received within that 20-day period, the application is final and binding, and at that time, any permits, if required, would be able to be applied for and issued at that time. However, this application in particular is a little ways away from the permit phase. So at this point, it would just be the approval of the variance, as they still have to navigate the site plan approval process.
Mr. Chair, how is that appeal put through?
So I would recommend following up with town staff, with either Eric or Caitlin, to assist you in getting that information.
So the forms come from either Eric or Caitlin?
They'll be able to assist in directing towards the forms, yes.
And when
Yes,
does that?
through you, Mr. Chair. The appeal form is available on the LPAT website. So when we send out the notice of decision, there will be some details on that. And then if you have any further questions, you can always contact staff.
Eric, with the holidays and the pandemic and things are so slow with things being mailed out, when would I receive that?
So the notice is going to be emailed as well to everyone that submitted public correspondence. So whoever received the report like this morning, they're going to receive the notice as well. It will also be mailed as well, but you'll get it through email. So it should be quick.
And the 20 days would, how do the holidays play? Is it 20 calendar days from now or 20 business days?
No, calendar days.
And when you email that out, will it have the how to appeal in there? Or?
Yep, so it's going to include the link to LPAT, which is the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, who handle all of appeals. And then you'll have to go onto their website and you'll have to fill out an appellate form. And if you have further questions when you're looking into that, feel free to reach out to staff, but it is all going to be included on that website, and there'll be a link to that website in the notice that you'll receive.
I guess I'm concerned about 20 calendar days when, with all the holidays, that there might only be 10 staff days, and that's going to be really restrict our ability to appeal.
So the ability on your end, it's quite easy. It's actually more of an administrative process on staff's end to get the appeal to LPAT. So it's really just getting the fee in, your rationale with the application form.
And that goes submitted to you, Eric?
Yeah, to the town.
Okay, and you have to have it within 20 days of now?
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Is there any other new business from committee members or staff? Seeing none. Again, thank you everyone for your participation this evening. It certainly is appreciated. And at this time, we'd like to move to adjourn this evening's meeting. So we have a mover. Lori, I think I saw you first. And is there a seconder? Mark, thank you. And all those in favor? Great, thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you again, everyone.